All right, guys, welcome back to another Real Talk episode. Today, we're going to be talking about, and this is a hot take, why I believe the ACOG is obsolete. And before you guys go yelling and screaming to the comments, there are a ton of, disclaimers I'm going to state with that statement. But I know some people are going to be like, well, of course it's obsolete. It's a 35-year-old optic, so on and so forth. What did you expect? And there's going to be other people who are going to report this video for misinformation. So there's that. And I have some prerequisites, some statements I want to make before I kind of dive into why I'm saying that. But before I do, just want to say thank you guys for stopping by. If you're new here, please like, comment, and subscribe. Every single comment helps. Even if you are just talking crap about my optic knowledge, I'm totally cool with that. Also, head over to rangedaybro.com. All of our merch, we have a discounts page over there. All of our affiliate links, our codes are all over there at rangedaybro.com. Also, make sure you subscribe to our email list over there. And then lastly, our loadouts page, which does feature this guy right here, this Griffin Mark II, and all of the goodies that we have on it. Besides this guy, which we're going to add to it, which is the latest addition to it, the HRT Tactical Sling, which I'm just getting around to starting to use this. So I'll hold my thoughts and opinions on this for later. But if you guys head over there, I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, we have a Patreon if you want to join that. Again, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Now that we got all that out of the way, the ACOG is obsolete. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if you are trying to set up one gun to do everything, this is not the optic choice I would choose. Now, what is the ACOG super good at? Obviously, super good glass, really super lightweight, super durable. These are all things that are not no stranger to anybody who's clicking on this video, right? You guys know this about the ACOG. Specifically, we're talking about the TA31, obviously, but I do think it pertains to the other ACOGs. I do also own the TA11, the large 3.5, I believe it's the TA11. And it's the same sentiment. And really, I'm just gonna put it out there at the beginning of this video, and then I'll probably go all over the place from here. But really what I mean, it's not the fixed magnification, it's not the short eye relief, it's not anything that you would traditionally think of me as like complaining about the ACOG. It's really the reticle choice. That's my biggest qualm with it. And today, again, another caveat I'm going to add, we had really high winds here, 25-mile-an-hour winds with like 40-mile-an-hour gusts. And but regardless of that, we were shooting this thing out the distance, 300 yards and 455 yards respectively. And I was very, very inaccurate, let's say, or inconsistent with this Trijicon ACOG because of the lack of reticle options, because of the lack of wind holds, really. And I know someone's already going to be typing it up furiously after I said reticle options. This used to be made with a ACSS reticle from Primary Arms. Trijicon made it with the Primary Arms reticle in it. That is unobtainium, no longer available. Last time I looked, they were selling aftermarket, if you could even find one, very rarely for like way overpriced used. So there's that. But I say all that to say, if you want a 250, maybe 300 yards. I say 300 yards and in gun optic for the lightest weight possible, the most durable possible, not needing batteries, then maybe the ACOG is for you. But I just want to dive into my experience today and the drills we ran today, and starting the review of this Griffin rifle pistol that you see right here, and what I learned very quickly about the ACOG. And so let's just get right into it. So first and foremost, we did the VTAC 9-hole drill. We did a little modified because the ranch I shoot at we only have it set up right now for 50 yards. So instead of a full-size IPSC at 100 yards, we did a 6-inch plate at 50 yards. And for those of you who don't know what the 9-hole VTAC drill is there literally 9 holes on a VTAC barricade. There's slanted slots, squares, and there's 3 at the bottom. You could look it up, okay? It's just pretty much shooting from all these different awkward angles, getting down to the bottom being the hardest part. And during that drill, the ACOG really was pretty good, honestly. The eye relief didn't bother me. There's ways around the eye relief, like you can see one of the ways right here. This is the Unity fast cog riser. So it's got that little bit, raises it up, and it also has the option to slide it back and to cant it back. Another way you can get rid of one of the biggest downfalls of the ACOG is by using these types of mounts, right? A bunch of people make them now. But you can actually offset it to the back if you're not going to run a rear iron sight because you're not in the military. They're not giving you really stupid, arbitrary rules to follow about backup iron sights. If you want to run backups, you can run them in front, but then you're going to have a tool to remove this because there's no QD levers, so on and so forth. But if you don't need a backup iron sight behind your ACOG, then you can very easily move it to the back. And again, with this type of optic mount and being able to slide all the way back, you're really not having a big issue with the eye relief, in my opinion, even from those very obscure and improvised shooting positions, laying on your side, shooting underneath a barricade, the ACOG actually performed pretty well. Now, obviously, in certain scenarios, it was very nice to have the offset red dot because, again, certain angles, the barricade was blocking my main optic, and so all I had to do was slide my head over a little bit more, and I could see the 50-yard target with my offset. So this type of setup, again, going back to the beginning of the video, some people are going to say, well, of course it's obsolete, but I would say that's a huge argument. That's not like a fine statement, because tons of people still consider this like the creme de la creme, or the benchmark for like a do-it-all type setup. It's like a 4x prism, super good glass, really good field of view, and then an offset for your up close and personal engagements. Now I know there's a different ACOG where you can mount the offset on top, which is better for passive aiming. I don't disagree with that whatsoever, but we're not so much talking about that today as we are talking about shooting during the day. And for this setup, shooting during the day, it did pretty good on the VTAC with that 9-hole drill, right? Didn't hinder me too much, I'll say that. And with the offset and that capability, it did have some advantages over what I would say is what I'm going to kind of recommend. Spoiler alert, a holographic and a magnifier for reasons we'll get into later. The offset does add an additional advantage, because even at those weird angles, I would have had to turn the gun more in order to get a field of view on the target with just a singular optic. And I know there are some guys who run a holographic, a red dot with an offset red dot for things like that, for that reason exactly. But that's a conversation for a different day. In this case, it did pretty good on that target set, on that drill. Now, where this really started to struggle was out to those different distant ranges. So I know, again, this reticle is probably calibrated for 14.5 inch, M4, standard issue military M4. Let me look at what the reticle says in here real quick. So it says 4x.223F. So take that for what it's worth. You guys can look that up. Someone let me know down in the comments. I'm certain that's for a 14.5. Again, calibrated for 14.5. But the problem is, on a day like today, or just any day, it has no wind holds. And also the 4X, as crispy as this thing is, at the 300-yard target, which the hold wasn't unbelievable. For 300 yards, this thing's 0 to 100 yards. For 300 yards, I was holding so there's a chevron. It's pretty much a triangle, right? It's more of a triangle than a chevron. It's a very thick chevron on this ACOG. And I was pretty much holding the bottom left of that chevron on the steel at 300 yards. So there wasn't a tremendous amount of wind at 300 with this 12.5 that I needed to hold off into open space like I did with the 455. But it was a 6-inch plate at 300 yards, meaning it's a 2 MOA target. It was back in the woods. It was in a wooded area in the trees. It was painted orange for high vis, but it's been shot up. So in a real world scenario, people say, well, this is a combat optic. It's for real world hitters, right? Real world pipe hitters. That's what this thing shines at. Well, in a real world scenario, I don't know about y'all, but I don't like to get shot at. So I'm probably going to be minimally exposed. And if this is, again, I forgot to preface this all. Let me finish my first thought, otherwise I'll forget. That's a realistic target. So you're gonna be shooting at somebody from behind. Someone's behind a tree, someone's in a foxhole they dug out, someone's behind a down limb, or they're behind some sort of cover. People don't like to just stand out in the open. This isn't the redcoats, right? No one's standing out in the open waiting to get shot with a giant C-zone steel. So that's a very realistic target for those types of engagements, and for something like this to be used for. And that brings me to my first point that I forgot to bring up at the beginning, is we are not talking about a home defense situation. Let me be very clear. I can't tell you the number of comments I get from people who are like, you better have a good lawyer if you shoot somebody past 100 yards. Like, bro, what are you talking about? This is not about home defense. The Second Amendment is not about home defense, although it should definitely be used for that, right? It is about defending yourself from tyranny, foreign or domestic. Period. That's what it's about. It's not about hunting. It's not about recreation. It's not about home defense. It's about defending yourself from tyranny, foreign or domestic, whether it's guerrilla or organized military, whether it's American or foreign, okay? Let's just get that out of the way, okay? No one's advocating for that, but that's what it was about. It was to deter that. That's the point of this. So before anyone goes commenting about how, all my setups are set up for that, for defending freedom from tyranny, foreign or domestic. It's not set up for, and obviously I could have one that's like a primary home defense rifle, but really what I'm trying to gear all these towards is like, how can I make this the most well-rounded piece of equipment? Because whatever I grab, it's not going to be like a scalpel. I'm not going on offensive executions where I'm going to find somebody and lay down and have my kestrel out, right? I'm talking about, hey, I'm grabbing one thing. I have no idea what I'm getting into. I have no clue what's going to come at us. I want one thing that's going to be able to do everything mostly well, right? That's kind of my mindset when I'm kitting these things out. So let's just get that out of the way. So with that in mind, with that being said, if you're fighting guerrilla warfare style, you're shooting at obscure targets, people are going to be hidden. If you get deployed right now to Ukraine, you're going to be shooting at people in trenches. They're not going to have a whole C-zone out exposed. You're going to be shooting at very small targets at relatively long distances for setups like this. You're going to be shooting at least 100, 150, 200 to 400 or 500 yards, I would argue. So with that in mind, that's kind of where this whole approach is coming from. My mindset of like, hey, let's have the most well-rounded thing to do every job, because you don't know what the job's going to be, right? I don't like to get into scenarios because you want to train hard skills. And instead of talking about scenarios, you can just apply those hard skills to any scenario that approaches you. So we're not talking scenarios. I'm not talking about if the world ends or if there's a zombie apocalypse. No, I'm just saying, if I want to take this rifle and shoot out to 300 or 400 yards with it, or 450 in this case, it's not going to have this optic setup on it because, and skipping ahead a little bit, well, let's go back to the 300-yard target. That target was so almost, I mean, it was almost impossible to see the way it was kind of camouflaged in. It was in the shadows, in the trees. And I mean, I could see it enough because I knew where it was, and it's a known distance as well. I didn't really know my dope, but I also had a spotter. Without that spotter, it would have been nearly impossible to actually get confirmed hits on that target with this ACOG. I was able to actually find it without the spotter. I was able to just get down, look, search in the general area thanks to the great field of view of the ACOG, so that's a positive there. But then once I got on it, it was a guessing game about where I was going to be hitting. Now I have some dope to go back with and understand at 300 yards I'm holding about the bottom of the chevron. But with those winds, luckily, it was still close enough of a distance that I didn't have to hold off into space. Now once we went to 455, that's where that all changed. So not only was it a much larger drop, so I was holding about between the 4 and the 6 really, because let's take a look at this guy again. So yeah, we have the 4, we have a hash, and then we have the 6. So I was holding about 500 for the 500-yard hash there for the 455-yard target, which isn't horrible, but what is horrible is I was holding about like 10 feet in relation to the target off to the right edge because of the wind. And that is where, again, just like with the EOTech and a red dot, that's my biggest criticism of these types of setups that do not have wind holds. Now, people are going to talk about how wind holds are so busy, and they're just so busy. It's like, dude, modern etched reticles, if you've looked through an attacker, if you look through the EOTech, even the Voodoo, which is a very reasonably priced scope, even the Arkin 1:8 is a phenomenal 1:8 for the money, especially. RDB over there at Arkin. I could watch a movie through those reticles. They're not so busy like the Horus Tremor 3 where you can't see anything through them. People act like they're just like a blur below those reticles. They're designed to be fine points of aim and to not obscure your view. They're really not all that bad. And maybe it's because I grew up, or I came up shooting kind of LPVOs. Like I went from like a Holosun holographic into the LPVO game, and the minute I saw a Christmas tree reticle, I fell in love with it. I was like, this is the way. Especially for a combat situation, people talking about combat optics, right? That's what the Christmas tree is designed for. You put it on the target, you pull the trigger. Okay, I see my splash now. Okay, I get the field of view on the ACOG is good for that, but I wasn't getting no splash. And in real life, there's no berm, there's no backstop. But in theory, you see your splash, and then now you move your reticle to wherever that splash was, put that piece on the target, and that's how you can get a rapid, combat accurate engagement, right? That's the idea behind a Christmas tree reticle. But without one in this ACOG, I was literally holding off and trying to reference branches in the tree line for my hold and kind of bracket the target on the 4 to 5 on this open space out here. And it was just anybody's guess whether I was going to get a hit or not. The other thing to mention, disclaimer I forgot to mention, was obviously the winds were extremely high, up to 40 miles an hour, so not a normal day of shooting for us whatsoever, but you don't get to pick the day you're gonna need this on, so just something to note. Also, another thing to note, we are shooting at very small targets at pretty long ranges for a 5.56 gun. I know it's not the bleeding edge of performance or distance that a 5.56 can perform at, but for a 12.5, 455 yards is pretty out there, and it's a lot further than most people get to shoot. So, and at that 455, we're shooting at a reduced C-zone. So it's 8 inches across by, I believe, 14 inches tall. So 8 inches at 400 yards is 2 MOA. So it's actually below 2 MOA at 455. So it's an incredibly small target. And at the 300-yard target, we're shooting at a 6-inch plate. So that's 2 MOA at 300 yards. So again, these are very small targets. This is not like, I'm not saying I set it up for failure. I'm just saying, but we have done it with other LPVOs, with other setups. And now what I'm just going to just finish this final point and then I'll move on to the LPVO because I think it's important to preface this because we just had a conversation about this the other day in Real Talk 55, I think it was. So to preface this, I'll just say this. Although on that VTAC barricade, the offset did present some unique advantages, there is little advantage in having the ACOG be your primary, especially close up, like 50 yards in, especially for CQB. I'm going to be running the offset the whole time, which is great, again, because you maintain a chin weld, you maintain that fourth point of contact with the offset. So it's not horrible, but it's still not the biggest window, and it's kind of obscured. Half your vision is kind of obscured by the ACOG, not half, but a decent portion of it. So we'll just say that. But with that being said, if you're going to sacrifice, or if you're going to have the inability to have holds at those distances, why not just go with something like this? And that's kind of what I've come down to. And I haven't made my decision yet. I'm asking you guys the question. Why not go with something like an EOTech with 5X magnifier? Now, there's some distinct and obvious advantages right away, right? EOTech's going to be much bigger window, much faster up close, especially like 25 yards and in. This is going to be much faster. Again, the offset still presents those advantages, but imagine you didn't have an offset, because most people are buying an ACOG like bend and aiming concept. It's not the same as having a straight up holographic, unlimited parallax, no eye box, or parallax free, unlimited eye relief is what I meant to say, and then have a 5X capability that you can take on and off very quickly, very easily, and modify your capabilities. So the reason I'm saying this is because you have all the advantages of the holographic being the fastest optic possible potentially out there, right? This or an aim point. I prefer EOTech as my astigmatism. But then you pop this baby on, throw it up. Now you got 5X. You got 1X better than the ACOG does, and you're still dealing with the same issue of having nowhere to hold. Now they do make 2-dot EOTechs, they make 3-dot, they make 4-dot EOTechs. I have just a single dot on this guy where it's literally just a dot. There's no donut of death or anything. The donut of death may come into handy at these distances. I don't really know. I haven't tested it out with this distance. I know there is some relation. It's like a 7-yard, and then I don't know what it is. Maybe it's 550 or something like that after that. But I know they have options for EOTechs with multiple dots. And if you're already going to be holding off out into the trees because you have no wind holds, then why not get all the advantages of a holographic and ditch the ACOG? And the holographic's been around, I mean, as long as I believe as the ACOG has. So that's kind of my whole shtick with that, I'll say. I mean, I would imagine, I haven't done it yet, I would imagine I'd have the same luck or the same feeling of inconsistency or hopelessness, really, shooting out at that 455 with this 5X magnifier and this EOTech. I haven't actually done it yet with this exact setup, but that's just a thought I had, right? Now to wrap it all up and bring it all together, this is the reason, this is the whole reason right here. This is a 12.5, just like that Griffin is. And this guy has the EOTech Voodoo 1-10 on it. And it has one of their reticles, I forget which one it is, the one that has the circle and the dot in the middle, but it also has the Christmas tree. And with this guy, now granted, I was proned out, ideal situation, less wind that day, but with this guy, I was actually able to spot and call my misses much better. Even though I had a higher top end and a smaller field of view, I was able to actually see where I was missing. And then also with the wind holds, when the wind did gust up, I had a reference point to put my dot on or to bracket it. And it was just like night and day difference in consistency and confidence in my ability to engage the target at 455. Same size, reduced C-zone. Again, weather was a little bit better that day that I've been shooting this. I've never shot this thing when the weather's at 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts. So I'll give it that. But this does have wind holds out to let's just check it out real quick. It's got a 5, a 10, a 15, and so at 4 it's got 15, and at 5 it's got up to 20, and then it goes further than that as you go down in the distance. So it just gives you something to be able to reference and hold on versus the ACOG, which is just out in open space. I know I've said it enough times now, but that's the whole point. And again, with a top dot or an offset, you have virtually no downside, in my opinion, besides the weight and the durability. And I say durability because most of us are shooting in the flash range, but obviously, again, I'm building these all out for that, hey, fighting tyranny, foreign or domestic. So I want it to be durable. And they make them pretty darn durable these days. I mean, I don't baby my equipment by any means. I'm also not T-Rex arms dropping them off of out of 30-mile-an-hour cars because I don't ball like that. I paid for a lot of the stuff, and I got to keep it in working order so that it'll work when I need it. But these have come a freaking long way, especially because, like, dude, the mounts have come such a long way too. Like, this Badger Condition 1 mount is an absolute, it's just a tank. It's a beast. This is what they have a current Gov contract for these, on sniper rifles, essentially. They have them on the M110s. I'm pretty sure they have, Badger has the, Badger Ordnance has the contract for like all the special operator sniper rifles these days. And I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty certain about it. And they've come such a long way. They have a top dot option, which is, clearly high above this Holosun here. So I get a full window, full sight picture with that. You do lose your chin weld on that guy, especially for this one in particular. I lose my chin weld. But again, there's other ones that will sit a little bit lower. That's got an extra plate on the bottom, adapter plate from the RMR to the Holosun 509. But if you wanted to go top dot and offset, or if you wanted to throw some kind of laser aimer range finder on the top, it's a little overkill for a 12.5, I would say for sure. But I like the top dot again for passing with night vision, and it's not all that bad losing that chin weld. It's just something you got to be aware of. You do sacrifice that. Now, if you went with a 1.5-inch height Badger Condition 1, you might still maintain that chin weld. They also have cheek risers for different types of stocks. This is the B5 this is the BCM gunfighter stock. So as far as I'm aware, I don't know of any cheek risers for this guy itself right here, but that's another option to maintain a chin weld with a top dot that's a little bit higher. But this is the 1.7-inch height. If you went to the 1.5, you might still have a chin weld with that top dot without a cheek riser. But they make all that stuff now so that you can maintain that fourth point of contact, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I just don't see the reason. And again, I know someone's gonna comment, it's old tech, it's bomb proof, make all these excuses for the ACOG. And I'm not saying it's a bad optic by any means. I still have it. I still love it. I mean, it's one of the best looking, most iconic looking optics ever. I mean, from video games, from movies, from everything, from just being used in GWAT for many, many years, decades really. And it's just infamous for just being the absolute tank that all other optics durability is measured based off of. Is it the ACOG is the benchmark? It's the best. It's the Glock of the optic world. So yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. I just don't think that it's going to be a realistic choice for someone who wants to build a do-it-all or a rifle that is capable of doing the most things effectively, because LPVOs exist. And now let me just tackle this one last topic, because I know someone's going to already comment about this. Why put a dot on here if you have a 1X? Why not go with an MPVO if you're going to have a 1X dot, either offset or top mounted? And my answer to that is because weight, and because it's nice to have the option. I mean, I don't always use the top dot. I do oftentimes use the 1X. I mean, I wouldn't say often, but like the 1X on an LPVO, even the best LPVOs, even the Attacker, this Voodoo, which is great, my Trijicon Credo, which is great, the Arkin, which actually punches way above its price range, and its capabilities are really, really great, and its 1X is really great too. It's just, if I have an offset dot, I'm usually going to run this all the way up, and I'm going to use my dot for up close stuff. It's not to say I can't, dial this back to 1 or 2 or 3 to get on target. But then again, if you have a top dot, I usually just line up my general area of my target, and then I drop down into my magnified optic. So why not go with MPVO? I mean, I don't think you're sacrificing all that much on the LPVO. Look, somebody convince me. Someone send me a link for what the best, most compelling MPVO is. If it's still 2 to 10, it's like, why not just go with a 1 to 10 second focal plane, which gets rid of a lot of the issues that first focal planes have in a 1 to 10. But again, it's like in practicality, like we're splitting hairs. Have I ever had an issue with this EOTech? Has it ever stopped me from hitting a target because the 1X isn't perfect? Or, I mean, like, what are we really arguing about here? I'm losing myself. I'm actually asking you guys, what was I even talking about? I have no idea. In all seriousness, it's like, okay, maybe if you're gonna just run it on 10X, this is me talking to myself, maybe it'd be better to get a second focal plane that does not have as much, image error in the image, And for the money, you get a much higher image quality if you're just going to keep it at 10x anyways, which is when all the holdovers and all that stuff is accurate to begin with. I just think it's a lot harder to find second focal plane optics that have the win holds that I like. I like a Christmas tree reticle again, but you do save a ton of money with a second focal plane. And if you're going to do an offset dot or a top mounted dot anyways, maybe that's something you want to consider. There was another point I had and now I can't remember. Top dot, offset dot, second focal plane, save money. Okay, better image quality. I think I covered it all. And if I didn't, I'm sure I'll have another real talk talking about it in the future here shortly. So yeah, I appreciate you guys. That's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Again, I know there's going to be people camp ACOG and camp, yeah, no shit, I get it. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys my experience while it was fresh. This just happened today. And while it was very humbling, it was like, man, I know I can hit these targets. I know at known distances, I know where they're at. It's just I don't have the wind hold reference. And when the wind's gusting up, even 10 or 15 miles an hour, it's still way easier to hit with a more capable reticle that gives you more information back to the shooter. So with all that being said, please head over to rangedaybro.com and check out our merch, sign up for our email list, check out our discounts page. All our affiliate codes and links are over there on the discount page, as well as our loadouts page, which has all these loadouts over there as well. All the parts, all the specific little, like the mount, all this stuff is on there, as much as I could find over at Brownells at least. And then lastly, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys want to hear about next in a Real Talk video. And then join the Patreon if you want to support the channel. Anyways, love you guys. Appreciate y'all staying to the end. And take care.